The Confederate win at Manassas in July of 1861 gave Americans their first great indication that the Civil War would not be short-lived. But the Battle of Shiloh in April 1862 was the first terrible sign of how costly the war would be. On April 7th, as the battle came to an end, the casualties were counted. More than 23,000 soldiers were killed or wounded, making Shiloh the bloodiest battle up to that point in American history. After the Confederate victory at Manassas, Northern morale was low. The Union needed a win. It came off the coast of North Carolina. In the Battle of Hatteras Inlet batteries in late August 1861, Union naval gunboats bombarded the fort there. Then joint Union Army troops and Marines landed to secure the shore. The Union now held control of the North Carolina Sounds, which allowed them to block Southern trade and establish a vital base for further operations. In October 1861, however, the North suffered another bad loss in Virginia, this time at the Battle of Ball's Bluff, near Leesburg in Loudoun County, about 25 miles north of Manassas. Nearly half of the Union soldiers were killed, including Colonel Edward Baker, a former congressman from Illinois and senator from Oregon. Baker was an old friend of Abraham Lincoln's. The loss at Ball's Bluff prompted Congress to create the Joint Committee on the Conduct of the War, a task force of 7 congressmen dominated by radical Republicans and focused on investigating Northern failures and seeking more aggressive tactics. Among other things, the committee sought the ouster of the commander of the Army of the Potomac, General George McClellan, who they thought was overly cautious and likely soft on the slavery issue. Lincoln resisted the committee's pressure and kept McClellan in command for the time being. The Civil War nearly took an international turn in November 1861. The U.S. warship, the San Jacinto, seized Confederate diplomats from a British ship, the Trent. Northerners cheered the action. One journalist reported, "The people are glad to see John Bull taken by the horns." British Prime Minister Lord Palmerston was outraged and told his cabinet, "You may stand for this, but damned if I will." Great Britain ordered troops to Canada and strengthened its fleet along the western Atlantic. Lincoln diffused the crisis by releasing the diplomats, but without apologizing for seizing them. The pendulum swung back in the North's direction when, on February 6, 1862, Brigadier General Ulysses S. Grant and his army captured Fort Henry near the border between Tennessee and Kentucky. That opened up the Tennessee River as a major invasion route into the Confederate South. 1 week later, Grant led another victory at the Battle of Fort Donelson, forcing the Confederates to retreat from much of Kentucky and Tennessee. Grant had now caught the president's attention and earned the praise of the public in the North. His star was rising. On March 7th and 8th, 1862, Missouri was secured for the Union in the Battle of Pea Ridge. On March 8th and 9th, in the naval battle of Hampton Roads near Norfolk and Newport News, Virginia, 2 armored, iron-plated warships, the USS Monitor and the CSS Virginia, fought each other in combat, the first battle of its kind in history. Hampton Roads ended inconclusively, although the Monitor succeeded in preventing the Virginia from destroying the rest of the Northern fleet. The spring of 1862 brought the war's deadliest battle to date. The Battle of Shiloh was fought on April 6 and 7, 1862, near Shiloh Church and Pittsburgh Landing on the Tennessee River in southwestern Tennessee. Altogether, there were about 62,000 Union forces and 42,000 Confederates who fought those 2 days. Grant led the Union forces in the Army of the Tennessee. One of his commanders was William Tecumseh Sherman. Albert Sidney Johnston commanded the Confederate Army of the Mississippi. His second in command was P.G.T. Beauregard. Confederate forces planned to hit Grant's army before the Army Major General Don Carlos Buell and the Army of the Ohio could arrive. The Confederates' own arrival, however, was confused and delayed. When Johnston's army was finally in place, Beauregard wanted to call the attack off. Johnston refused. Even if Buell came to Grant's aid, he said, I would fight them if they were 1,000,000. On April 6, under the cover of early morning fog, the Confederates launched a surprise attack, initially pushing Union forces back toward the Tennessee River. Johnston was killed on the first day, so Beauregard took command. Buell and the Army of the Ohio arrived overnight to reinforce the Union side. On April 7th, Grant's army launched an attack at 6 o'clock a.m. From the Tennessee River, the USS Tyler and USS Lexington provided naval artillery in support of Grant's left flank. Twice, Beauregard ordered counterattacks, temporarily stopping the Union advance. That second day of battle, a Union division led by Brigadier General Lew Wallace, the future author of Ben-Hur, joined the fighting. By late afternoon, Beauregard realized he was outnumbered and, having already suffered tremendous casualties, retreated toward Corinth. When the smoke cleared from Shiloh, an estimated 23,000 soldiers had been killed or wounded, by far the costliest battle up to that point in the war. The casualties were about equally distributed between North and South. General Sherman described the horrible carnage. There were piles of dead soldiers' mangled bodies, without heads and legs. The scenes on this field would have cured anybody of war. News of Shiloh shocked the nation with its scale of violence and showed the Civil War would be long and extremely costly.